guys. We are glad to be here. We've all been in those seats within the past 6-8 months. So it's good to, we were saying we were expecting to see our classmates come up. And we have Todd, so that's, Todd's our steady guy over here. If you have any questions as we go through, we'll definitely have room for questions at the end, but if you're like me and you think of something, you're like, I'm not going to remember that in 20 minutes, just, raise your hand and we'll answer any questions at the end. So I'm Kristen, by the way, this is Anna, since I've not met any of you Anna. We are both at Profugo, which is in Ardmore, so just down on Lancaster Avenue, here at Lancaster Highway. Yeah. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about Profugo. Profugo is an organization that works primarily in a region of India, the kind of southwestern region of India, in the state of Kerala, and a district called Wayanad. Sorry, not enough coffee yet today. And they are working in a number of different kind of development arenas everywhere from water to tailoring training to health, etc. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. But you can see here we've got our mission statement up here. You can just read that if you'd like. But the primary focus is on enabling people through the various tools and resources to make a better life for themselves and for their families. And in the process, we want those things to be sustainable, we want them to be cost-effective, we want them to be long-lasting. Sustainability obviously is a buzzword in development, as you guys all know, I'm sure, and no less at Profugo. So that's one of the things that we're really working on, is figuring out how to build a sustainable organization. Anna will probably talk a little bit more about the Center of Development and the staff there, but there are a lot of Indian staff, a lot of people from the community or from neighboring areas, and so even though there's a US-based office in Ardmore where it's mostly Americans, although not all Americans, it's definitely, the focus is on building up Indian leaders in this organization. So we start from the beginning. Profugo was started several years ago, 2008, and Ashwin and Jenny Colwith are the co-founders. Ashwin is on the board. Jenny is actually our executive director for Profugo. Ashwin is from India. Jenny is from South Korea, I believe. And they were both kind of in the business sector, and Jenny was in editing, and then they kind of decided, they had visited some different places, and they decided they really needed to do something to serve these people in this area. They had visited Giri, which is in Wayanad, and they went on a visit there, and they decided that they wanted to start there. They saw the need, they felt like the community would be receptive, they had met with some people, they did a one-year survey in the area that led them to Giri.
Okay, so Profugo works off of what they call their Center of Development model, which is a three-pronged model that encompasses lots of different areas of development. We're going to actually kind of break it down into the three prongs. There's health and wellness, human development, and social capital. You'll get to see all of these, don't worry. Health and wellness is a big one. So the model is designed to improve public health. Mostly, we're focusing on this right now in October. Kristen's actually going to talk about this later. In Giri, health is a big issue. People lose wages from having to take a day off to go to the hospital. Kids are sick a lot, and they just don't have the resources to address it. So Profugo wanted to start addressing some of the problems that go behind healthcare, and that is things like clean water, natural resource management, and healthcare services. So we're not just focusing on access to healthcare, it's also the things that contribute for health. The human development side of it is more education and training. So we have our tailoring training program that Kristen will talk about later, but it's mostly the empowering individuals so that they can have opportunities to lead healthier and better lives. It's education, resources, business development, entrepreneurship. You've probably heard a lot about these, but you'll hear more in the program as you go about small business and micro-entrepreneurship. That's something that Profugo really believes in. Social capital is another. This is one of the prongs of the development model that we haven't fully explored yet. We're still doing some research in this area, but it has to do with things like microfinance, small business, social funds, community funds, things like that. It's all about helping people not only start a business, but sustain it, and then be able to profit from it and improve their families' lives. So Prashant-Giri, as Kristen said, is the village that they chose to work in. You can see on the map here, it's in the southwest of India and Kerala. And it's located in Wayanad. And right now we're working with 40 families in Prashant-Giri. And there are 2 different sections of the village that we're working in. They have poor access to things like electricity, drinkable water. The community is mostly subsistence farmers, a lot of day laborers as well. They'll go out to other villages and do work and then come home. But however, there are like national parks in this area. There are a lot of ecological wonders in this area that they're really proud of. So there's an abundance of natural resources. However, the community doesn't have the skills that they need to really put these to their fullest use and really get all the potential from them that they can. The local language is Malayalam. I had to practice that a few times. But it's Malayalam, and one of our staff members actually at the office in Ardmore, her name is Anu Thomas. Her parents are actually from this area. She speaks fluent Malayalam, and she just went to our center of development in India to be a field fellow, which we'll tell you about later. So the center development is an actual place as well, it's not just a model. In Prashant-Giri, we have 2.7 acres, 5 minutes right outside the village. It's where the field fellows live, so some of our staff actually live there, and other field volunteers, when they go, that's where they stay. Most of our initiatives that we do are based out of this office. So we have our Water for Life project, tailoring training, and then English language school are all housed in this actual building, which I hadn't seen this picture before, and so that was kind of fun to see. But Kristen's going to tell us more about these projects in particular and how this model is put into practice.
So this is just kind of one more map of the area, and you can see a little bit where they are. Pretty close to the ocean, although Wayanad is in a little bit further. So the first project is Water for Life, and basic problem, as in many countries in the world, they just don't have access to clean water. The community there is no different. They've had to travel long distances to collect water, and the incidence of water-related illnesses was really high. So Profugo has been working in the area to dig wells, and so they've got 3 wells now? They've done 3 wells now that just allow the community members to have access to clean water. And they have monthly allowances the community contributes to the maintenance of the wells. So you can see here, 20 families now have access to clean water. The amount of time and resources spent on water collection and purification has been reduced from 2 hours a day to 20 minutes a day. Water-related illnesses have been reduced. So 2 hours, that's a significant portion of your day. I don't know how many of you live in the city, but I think about my transportation time. I live in South Philly, and so it takes me, on the days when I'm here or to Ardmore, about an hour each way. And it's an entirely different thing going to get water versus being on a train, being on a bus, and not having to carry things aside from my computer bag. But still, 20 minutes versus 2 hours, that's pretty significant. So we're trying to support an infrastructure where the villagers have access to clean water. Eventually they want to have it pumped directly into their homes and have not enough, not just for drinking and cooking, but also for agriculture. And we're really looking to reduce water-related illnesses. So the next part, and it's semi-related because of the water issue, is sustainable agriculture. Pesticides, as in much of the world, are very, very common, even more so in some ways after the Green Revolution in the 70s, which fed a lot of people, but also brought in a lot of pesticides that weren't formerly there. And those pesticides run off into wells, and there are health problems because of that. And so it's just not a good deal. So they're working to I've been testing the water to make sure that they're pesticide-free and teaching community members about the harm that pesticides can cause and the harm that other farming practices can cause as well. And they're working on sustainable farming techniques, organic in a lot of cases, other farming techniques as well. Rainwater harvesting, for example, to reduce the water that they're having to take out of the wells. So they've just developed some different techniques they're using. They're applying techniques that have been used in other parts of the world to this community that may not have heard of before. This is Yogi, and he is one of our field workers there. I believe he's a local in that area. Very well educated, family history in farming. Next up, we have tailoring training. As you can see, so here some of the products, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But basically, one of the problems there is that people are living on $2 a day or less, which, as you guys know, is very common. But it's not enough for them to live on in most cases. It's definitely not enough to send kids to school. As you know, many countries don't have free public school, or if they do, the quality is very, very low. And so they have to pay for uniforms, they have to pay for books, they have to pay for this and that, and then healthcare as well. So Profugo is really interested in finding a way to build sustainable incomes for these people. And so they hired a local tailor to come in, and they brought together a group of women to train them in different tailoring techniques, as well as some sustainable business practices and a little bit of English language. And then just ways that they could be empowered in their communities, ways that they could have a voice. So there are 11 women in the tailoring program who are paid an above average fair wage. They're providing for their families and building the skills to succeed, and they're producing this merchandise. So you can see we've got a bag, we've got some clutches, a wallet, coin purse, scarves, and is our fashionable model here. All of the revenue from the projects, or from the merchandise that's sold, goes back into the projects that are benefiting the women and this community as a whole. They're not, at this point, selling the merchandise in India. It would be great if they were able to do so, but quality and the price that they would need to charge in order to make it a sustainable business for them is a little bit higher than the village level, what the village can afford to pay, but the quality is not quite at the level of some of the high-end places in India where they could afford to pay what they need to pay. So they're doing most of the merchandise here in the States at this point, and we go to events and fairs and artisan things and all that kind of stuff in order to sell this, as well as it's on the Profugo website. Eventually, the hope is for the sustainable business practices that they're learning to be applied either to the point where the women themselves completely take over the program, or in some cases they may branch out, start their own various jobs and stores and trades, etc. So this is just a quote from one of the women who is in the program. Before the tailoring school, I was doing day labor work every day in and around the lot. When I heard Profugo was giving training to ladies, at first I doubted if I would join. Thought my work would be effective, but despite my anxieties, I came for training. Mary, the teacher, had informed me that Profugo would be giving me work in addition to training. That made me very happy. Now I don't have to travel as far to work and have a consistent schedule every week. I've also started saving. I put a little money away every month. This lady has a couple of kids that she's also working sport, and her husband is a day laborer as well. So it's just a way for them to bring income into the home and to help educate the kids, take care of their health, buy more than just the bare essentials to survive. So I've talked about this a little bit, but there's in addition to the program itself, they've got this marketplace that's going primarily here in the U.S. for now, and all these different bags, scarves, purses, etc., that they are selling and training them to make different things. There's a constant kind of inflow of new designs, new ideas, both from the women there in India and folks here stateside who are saying, okay, in the market, here's what we're seeing. Can we produce this? Can we produce this in a good quality? How much time, how much labor is it going to take? So we've got the store. It's primarily online, but like I said, also at fairs and artisan markets and that kind of thing as well. We've done some stuff with Philly Fair and women's associations and that kind of thing. So this is their, last spring they did a Kickstarter to really get the store going even more. So you'll see kind of on the website if you happen to look through and see things about the Kickstarter.
Let me jump in real quick here. Tell you a little bit more about the products. They're all locally made. So the fabric itself is block printed by local tradesmen in the area. So it's all local fabric. It's organically dyed. It's handmade. The women then take the raw materials and turn it into these bags and then send them to us. We tag them, check them for quality, and then we sell them on our online store and at events. But then, like she said, 100% of the proceeds go back to the women. It pays their wages, and it pays for other projects in the area. So none of that goes to Profugo. In fact, we're all a volunteer staff, so none of it goes to us at all, unless we get to keep free things every once in a while. But it's completely sustainable because we're giving business to the local tradesmen who make the fabric, and then we're also helping the women learn this trade, and then it keeps the chain going.
Next project, and it kind of plays into some of the others as well, is the English language school. There are a lot of different dialects. The primary language there in Profugo here is Malayalam. Sorry, I've got something in my eye, guys. But the most common language across India is English, which sounds funny to us because we think, well, other countries aside from like UK and Australia and a few others speak other languages. But English has become such a market language, a commerce language that it's very common all over the world and in India as well. So really to get ahead in the business world and any kind of marketing, any kind of outside their immediate community, people need to learn how to speak English in a lot of these areas. So Profugo is running an English language school in that area. They're teaching kids, they're teaching adults, and they have after-school programs for children. Over 40 children and adults are learning spoken English at this point. I think they're also learning a little bit of written English, but the focus is really on the spoken at this point. So basically their idea is just to provide everybody with the opportunity to learn English, and it's also incorporated into the tailoring training program. Hand in hand with the sustainable agriculture that we talked about earlier is natural resource management. They're still primarily in the research phase of this. They really just started within the past few months. But they're working to figure out, okay, how can we harness solar power? How can we harness wind power? How can we harness the rainwater harvesting and that kind of thing? How can we make sure that we are not taking away through our farming, through our other programs, not taking away from the natural world, but in fact using it sustainably. And the idea there is, in addition to the ecological implications, is to save money as well by allowing people to use their resources more effectively and sustainably. And then we've talked a little bit about this. There's the health and wellness program. It's a 90-minute trip to the nearest hospital. So any kind of illness that can't be treated at home, they have to go to this hospital. And an hour and a half away, both ways, means that if you go, you sit for a while, as people often do in hospitals, and wait for a doctor or even a nurse to see you. And by the time you get out of there and get home, you've lost a day's wages that you haven't been able to work. So one of the things that Profugo is doing is they are holding health programs and health forums in the community to help educate people about home remedies and different tools that are available to them. They're trying to make blood pressure tools available at the Center of Development. They're trying to make various like first aid kits available so that people aren't having to go to the hospital for every little thing that really could be treated at home if you have to know how. So we've held a couple of health forums so far, one for children, one for men, one for women, and just had about 100 people show up to the forum so far and learn about different tools and resources that are available to them. Eventually they want to have a facility that will train health educators and health care workers in the area, although that's probably a little ways off still. This month, as Anna mentioned, we are running a campaign, a fundraising campaign. It's called Be a Hero for Health. And the whole idea is to raise funds to support these health education forums and support the community's health efforts, health and wellness actually. So we've got a quick video that we're going to show you. It's about that campaign. Alright, we're gonna
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of. We are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you.
So that's our Hero for Health campaign where we only have, 2 weeks left?
Yeah, we're gonna.
A week and a half left for our Hero for Health campaign. So if you feel like spreading the word, you can find us on Facebook and kind of share a little bit about what's going on. We post these pictures every couple of days. That's one of Kristen's jobs, is these pictures here like you're seeing, and then some of our staff as well in our Hero for Health pose. So what can you do? This is a question that I'm sure you're thinking of, or you're going to get around to thinking of. What are you going to be doing this time next year? I know that was on my mind when I was sitting in that seat last year. So at Profugo, we're always on the lookout for passionate, talented volunteers who want to be a part of what we're doing to build a global neighborhood. There are different ways to get involved. You can be a field fellow, an intern, a volunteer, or an advisor. And I'll tell you a little bit about each of those things. So field fellows, these are our field fellows who coordinate specific projects in Prashanthagiri. They stay at our Center of Development. You can see Emily, Estelle, and Tyler. These are all students who have graduated and are now, Emily has been there for 2 years and she's starting her 3rd. Estelle is starting her 2nd year and Tyler is new, but he's definitely fitting right into the community. And they usually stay a year, but they could stay longer. We offer graduate or undergraduate credit for these positions. And they help local staff with various projects that they're passionate about. So Tyler is interested in sustainable agriculture, so he's helping do more research and development in those areas. We also have interns, which is what we are. Interns stay in our Ardmore office, and we do lots of different things, pretty much whatever we're told, whatever needs to be done. You can see we have booths at fairs. We take product photos, so you can see our lovely models in the corner there. And then we all work collaboratively in the office, supporting the project, supporting our executive director, pretty much doing whatever we need to do. The internships are unpaid, we're all volunteers, but we do offer school credit. Volunteers, we have a lot of volunteers. You can see on the top picture, that is Julie Gopalani. She is actually a doctor, but she volunteered to go lead one of our health workshops. And so she was able to, because she also speaks the local language, she was able to go and lead one of the workshops with the women and really get involved with that. We also have advisors. Advisors help us create projects. They just give us guidance in a lot of what we do. I think Stan is one of our advisors. He's very helpful when it comes to a lot of different things. He's also been friends with Jenny and Ashwin for a while. So right now we actually have a team from Villanova who are there. Professor Hezekiah Lewis is there with his social documentary class, and they're going to be doing a video about the village of Prashantagiri and what Profugo is doing to interact with them. So we're really excited to see what they do. So advisors can do just about anything they want. So me, my position is technically called the Relations and Outreach Manager, which is very fancy for an intern. But basically what I do is I look for potential connections for Profugo, whether it's academic institutions, nonprofits, professional organizations. This opportunity here was because of my efforts in networking and remembering, oh yeah, you guys do development dialogues. So I also help with marketing campaigns and materials. Just pretty much whatever I can do to spread the word about Profugo and help us connect to the people we need to be connected to.
And I am the communications manager. Again, a fancy title for an intern, but hey, it's okay. And I'm doing mostly social media, developing new communications materials, reaching out to potential guest bloggers for our blog and for our newsletter, and working on different marketing materials, like a brochure, that kind of thing. Simple things that don't take that long, but they go a long way sometimes toward making an organization more credible, more professional, etc. So right now, my biggest thing this month has been managing the social media for the Hero for Health campaign. Posting to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Haven't really done a whole lot with Pinterest, but Pinterest as well. And then in the next week and a half, in addition to that, I'll really be working on pulling things together for Profugo's newsletter, which goes out on the first Saturday of the month. I think Anna's writing an article for us this time. I wrote one the last time, so it's a matter of sometimes recruiting people to write for us, and then other times Jenny, our executive director, has already recruited somebody like a field fellow or somebody, and so they'll send me their material and I'll edit it and put it into the format and do all that kind of stuff.
So if you go to our Facebook page and you look at any of the pictures that are on there for Hero for Health, Kristen made those, and sometimes kind of strong-armed a few people into taking pictures for us. So if you want to get involved in that, you can take one of our Hero for Health photos. But just check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Our biggest presence, I think, is on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's it for us as far as our formal presentation. Any questions? Comments? All right. Okay.
How do you select which community members benefit from the program, or how do you encourage participation, and how big is this community?
The community is actually fairly small. We're only working in certain sections of the community as well, and it's pretty much wherever they've expressed interest in having us come help. But also, one of our biggest problems is getting the men involved. So our health workshops, we have like 100 women, 100 kids, and 17 men. So it's really hard to, we can't force people to come, and we can't force people to be interested. It's been a lot of the women asking us to be there and the women leading kind of the projects and interest. They're the ones who bring their friends. They're the ones who spread the word. Again, it's also a job kind of thing, so the men don't want to leave work for a day and come to a workshop. The women are a little bit more able to do that sometimes. So yeah, it's right now we're trying to spread more into the community, but we don't want to force our way where we're not really wanted.
When you say education, was that just the English school that you were talking about, like English classes? Or is there like tutoring or adults, kids?
It's primarily the English language school, although, like I said, there's also the community health forums. So it's kind of very targeted education. English, health, and other things that can revolve around our projects there. So no, we're not doing tutoring in other subjects aside from English and school.
If it relates to the project, so like the tailored training, they're learning things like math, they're learning business practices, so really tailored to whatever the project is.
My question was, what do most of the men in the community do? And I guess partly you might have answered this in what you were saying, the men aren't really engaged in what you guys do, but are there any efforts to do like a vocational training school for the men or something like that, or to engage them more?
I think there's not a vocational school, but one of the ways that they're really trying to reach out is through sustainable agriculture and natural resource management, and even the wells for that matter. If you go look on the website, for example, there are a lot of pictures of the wells being built, and there are a lot of men involved in that. But yeah, they're working really on the sustainable agriculture front to get men more involved, because that is their primary income for a lot of their subsistence farmers. So giving them a way, educating them in that way to be able to grow more crops, grow more food for their family, and do it in a more sustainable way.
And there's also a little element of fear, I think, for some of the men. If we come in there and start saying, you should be doing this, and you should do this instead, we're messing with their livelihoods. And if it's been working for a while, then us coming in there and going, well, try this instead, could be a little off-putting. So it's more us trying to come alongside them and get them to come up with the ideas.
There's also, now that you mentioned it, just something, when you take microfinance in the summer, if you have Wendy, you'll probably watch a video at some point about microfinance and farming and farmer suicides in India. There's a rash of farmer suicides, maybe it's still going on, I'm not sure, that had to do with, there are these, okay, I'm back up a bit. How many of you are familiar with an agriculture extension program, state-led? Anybody? Aside from Stan? Okay. So a lot of states in the U.S. and in other countries as well have a state-run agriculture extension program that they offer advice to farmers, they lead workshops, they do this and that. My background is I graduated from Texas A&M University. Texas A&M runs the ag extension program in the state of Texas. And so many other countries at some point have had an ag extension program. It's a reliable source. It's a non-partial source. Extension agents aren't paid by Monsanto or seed agencies or pesticide sellers, etc. They're completely supposed to be at least impartial. A few years ago, India, I think in their budget cutbacks, got rid of the extension program. They had it at one point, they got rid of it. And so these farmers had to rely then on advice basically from people who had a vested interest in one product or another, in these hybrid seeds or this pesticide or this. And so we're telling them, use this, use this, use this. And as a result, they didn't always get the best, most reliable information, and things went bad for a lot of people. And so there were a lot of people got into heavy debts because they were buying things that they didn't really need, or they were buying things that maybe they did need, but they weren't trained properly on how to use them, and so they lost their crops, they lost this or that, and so there was kind of a rash of suicides in the area. So that, I think, really has lent a lot to the fear of, okay, do we listen to these people, or do we try to just go it on our own? Because what do these people, these outsiders, have to say really about our lives? It's not going to be on their heads if our crops fail. So.
In your presentation, did you mention about like the women that saw this items, also saw uniforms like the children?
They don't at this point, although that's a really good idea.
In the local school, in their village doesn't require uniforms, but if the kids go to like a different school, then that could be something we could explore. But no, they don't do that currently.
So are you looking to explore that level?
We're always looking for new ideas for the women to be able to kind of branch out and make it more sustainable. So that might be something we could.
But would you, if you do that, would you consider, because providing just a free uniform, I don't think that would be effective in making sure the child goes to school, because you have to worry about the fees, the children having food before they go to school, because in countries like India, just other developing countries, one of the reasons why children are unable to access school has to do with just, unable to eat or kind of float school fees. So are you also looking into expanding that rather than just providing a uniform?
Right, it would be a business. It wouldn't necessarily just be free uniforms. I'm sure there would be a business element to it if we did go down that path.
Can you please expand more on the donation slide about the education? Is the education only for health? The $10 donation,
Right,
was
so-
just for health, and how does that work? How is that supposed to prevent something?
Right, so the campaign that is going on right now is specifically targeted at providing health education. So,
The workshops we've had, we did things like dental hygiene. The kids didn't have toothbrushes, so they weren't brushing their teeth or, being aware of things like that. So the kids, we focused on dental hygiene. The women, we focused a lot on things like blood pressure and blood sugar, and are you eating just straight up carbs and starch all day, or how can you vary your diet so you get more nutrients? So we're kind of trying to tailor those to the specific group we're looking at, so if it's children or women or men. The men we focused a lot on try not to drink so much, and because alcoholism is a problem in the area. So the $10 donations that we're getting, they're going towards having these workshops. So it's not necessarily we're telling them things like, here's how to cure this illness, because we don't have the qualifications for that. We're telling them, make sure you wash your hands, make sure if you're getting water that you don't know is clean, make sure you purify it, and here's how you do that. Make sure your kids are eating fruit, or if they have headaches or colds or things like that, here are signs to look out for that mean you should go to the hospital. So we're not giving them medical advice and saying, good luck. That's definitely not good, nonprofit ideas, but so it's a lot more of just general health and wellness.
And how long do you have this?
They've been going on for a few months now. We have workshops once a month with them. But right now we're just focusing on it because that's our biggest need. That's the community has shown more interest in that program right now, and they're asking for more workshops.
So in addition to running the workshops themselves and providing things like materials for these workshops, refreshments sometimes, especially if you're spending the day there away from work, there are also things like toothbrushes and first aid kits.
We had pictures of all the women getting their blood pressure taken, and they loved it. They'd never even seen, half of them hadn't even seen this before. They didn't know what it was, and so they just really, it's just more education and kind of enriching their knowledge base.
Yes.
You mentioned of how you talked about the health system, and you talked about how you've been giving out aids to the area, but have you looked at maybe working with not just that community, but also working with the government in terms of readjusting the health system?
Yeah.
That it just doesn't only accommodate that location but across India, because I'm sure there are other areas that are struggling with that.
Oh yes, definitely. Well, right now because we are so small, and because our focus has been just in Prashantagiri, we've engaged with the local health clinics on the level that they know who we are and they know we're working in the community, but we are not set up at this point to kind of take on the government. But we have explored things like ASHA programs, which is community health workers, and training women in the communities to be professional, like midwives and things like that. So we're exploring some of those routes. We just don't have the clout in the community yet to really take on the government.
In order to get the materials, do you partner with Indian businesses for toothbrushes and blood pressure and things?
It's so cost prohibitive to ship things over there, and it makes a lot more sense to support the local economy and buy toothbrushes and locally than for us to buy them over here. Send them.
I have two questions. Well, I have a lot more than that, but I'll start with you. So shipping is expensive, obviously, but is that how you get all of the bags and items over here? Do you ship them?
Yeah.
Like, how have you figured out how to do that?
They do ship them. They ship them in gigantic boxes, and those costs. The cost for actually making the bags is relatively low, so that even the shipping, even building and the shipping, it's not super crazy. So that we don't have to charge a ton.
Yeah, we've kind of set the market price that covers the cost of making it, shipping it, paying the women's wages, and then being able to buy more materials. So we've built it into the
Fairly
price.
healthy profit in there, surprisingly. I mean, it seems like they're not super expensive, and so you think, wait, they can't get a lot of. They're actually profit, and they go back into the projects. And then also, occasionally when we have people going back and forth, rather than shipping a giant box, we'll have them carry a giant suitcase instead, which, they may have to pay fees on it for flying, but it's sometimes less than it would be to ship something. So. Sure, go for it.
How many staff, including like the volunteers and interns and everybody, are working with you right now? And how many of those, if any, are paid?
Well, in the Ardmore office, nobody's paid. Not even our executive director. It's all volunteer. Right now in the Ardmore office, we have
Keep
6
getting new
interns.
people, so.
Yeah, we get interns all the time, or volunteers all the time. We have 6 interns. We have our executive director, so she's a constant, and then we have our program director, Ty, and he's a constant as well. But then we're constantly having an influx of volunteers who can help at this event, but they can't help at that event. So that's Ardmore. In India, we have, I think it's 6 or 7 that are local staff. So they're from the community, from the area, and then we have our 3 field fellows, well not 4 because Amy was there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 4 field fellows right now who are Americans who have gone over it. And Jenny's father-in-law he kind of heads up this under development there. He's from there, so he knows the community, and he leads kind of all the projects in that area and kind of coordinates everything for us.
So the Indian staff are paid. The field fellows receive housing and stipend. But the staff that are here are not paid. We're all volunteers, so we're either interns or the more permanent staff. They actually, Jenny and Ashwin run also Cyrus XP, which is a business that they work with like medical IT kind of stuff, IT help. So some of the staff work for them full time, but donate some of their time to Profugo.
So when you guys were looking into different internships and field practice, I guess I'm just curious as to how you came across this organization and also what it was that like really drew you guys to it.
Well, I applied to 27 places when I was looking for an internship. And I started in December, so go ahead and start if you haven't already. Yeah. So for me, it was kind of, I lucked across Profugo. We were at an event for a screening of Girl Rising. I don't know if you've seen that documentary, but it was here on campus, and there was a panel afterwards. Dr. Bronco was one of the panelists. And they were talking about, well, if you are passionate about women's issues, how can you get involved here? And one of the women on the panel mentioned, oh, well, there's this organization called Profugo. So that night I looked it up online, sent an email to Jenny. The next day she's like, hey, when do you want to come in and interview? So for me, it just kind of happened really quickly, and it worked out perfectly for my needs. But what really interested me about them was that they were interested in kind of holistically working with the community, not just one specific project or one specific area of focus. It was more like, this community has lots of needs. What do they want from us, and what can we provide?
I actually found out about Profugo the same way, that same panel. It's a fateful night. And same thing, emailed them, and Jenny said, hey, come in for an interview. All right. It worked out well. I kind of wanted to stay in this area for a little bit longer, and same kind of thing. They're very interested in the development of the whole person, not just the economic development, which is important, but it's, as you guys know, not the whole ball of wax. And so I wanted to stay here and work with them. Also, I knew that I would actually be able to do something significant. They're a very small organization, they're all volunteers, so every person they have has a role to play. And it's a little frustrating sometimes because we don't always have the resources or the connections to do everything that we want to do. And so both of us come up with ideas and we can't quite tackle that yet. But at the same time, we know that we're really contributing in a significant way to the life of this organization.
So through volunteering with them, are you able to work also? Like, are you able to have a job?
Yeah, they're
and
really
also
good about
volunteer?
accommodating. A lot of the interns are still in undergrad programs as well, or grad programs, and so they're really good about accommodating our schedules and our needs. I'm a house parent at a resident student program, and that's kind of a demanding schedule. I have 2 kids homesick right now. So really, I should probably be taking them to the doctor at some point today. And if I were to tell Jenny, she'd be like, sure, go ahead. So they're really good about accommodating us.
I don't have a job at this point. Trying to just get my schoolwork done first. But actually, my internship will be finishing up here within a couple of weeks. We started back at the beginning of August. And I had hoped to stay on longer with them, but I'm getting to the point where and funny jobs, I think people is. Pay my rent, that kind of stuff, take care of cats. But they've been really, really good about that. And I've said, okay, I'd like to be able to help at least with some stuff going on. And oh yeah, sure, whatever you can do. But I understand you need to find a job. But they were definitely willing to work with me as far as at the very beginning when I was interviewing for a couple of part-time jobs. Your schedule is as flexible as you need it to be. You have to get in your hours because it's required by this program, but as far as what days you work, that kind of stuff, what hours you work, just let us know. We'll work around that. So.
You mentioned something about holistic needs, but I didn't hear you guys saying about like how they try to balance the culture and religion, like how do they meet the needs culturally and spiritually?
Profugo is actually a non-religious organization, so yeah, they're technically not doing anything on the spiritual side of things. Culturally, they're really encouraging the culture of that area that we had. A few weeks ago, there was a celebration, there's an annual celebration called Nam, that is like that area, Maryland. There was a big party and meal and everything at the Center of Development. But yeah, they're not a religious organization, and so they're not doing anything on that front specifically.
Was that a major factor when you guys were deciding what organization you wanted to work for? Did you think you'd work for a Christian organization or not? I also want to know a little bit more about your 27 organization.
Okay, so the first one, for me, when I found out, Jenny herself has her own personal beliefs, but they don't play into the organization because they want us to be able to have a broader reach, I guess, and they're able to interact more with secular organizations than they would have if they were to label themselves as evangelical or Christian. So for me, it was a factor at the beginning, but I kind of was able to let that one go when I started realizing these 27 places weren't going to take me. And so I was able to say, okay, you know what, this has a lot of the other elements that I was looking for, and I can still be a Christian and work for them. So for me, that it was big, but then I was able to see how I would still be able to work with that.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, Christian, not Christian, they're doing good work. They're doing work that I can, as a Christian, can look at and say, this is furthering the kingdom of God, because it's helping me. And they definitely run it in a Christian manner, even if it's not explicitly Christian. It's about the people, it's not about profits, it's, trying to be kind to one another, and all of the values that we hold as Christians as far as behavioral values are definitely being upheld there. What's everyone's opinion?
That's a long story. But basically, I applied to everywhere that you could possibly apply to for an internship. In fact, some places that I said, I'll never get this and this is dumb, but I'm going to apply anyway. So big name organizations, the UN, World Vision, Tier Fund, Samaritan's Purse, World Relief.
Well, we have friends who are working for those
Yes,
organizations. so I don't
Catholic
know.
Relief Services. I mean, everywhere that you could possibly apply. The problem is that my background is in education. I was a high school teacher for 6 years, and I think they looked at my resume and said, you were a high school teacher, and now you want to do like relief and disaster stuff? How does that connect? So I think the problem was they went for people who had the experience that I didn't, which I'm seeing a little bit of dismay now. Yes, sir.
So I think if I remember correctly, did Summer Institute of Linguistics, did they express interest in you because
They
of
did,
your
yes.
education background? So there may be some organizations, and I'm thinking especially of Rachel, how do you pronounce that? Maybe. Because that might actually be, and maybe afterwards you can share with Rachel a little bit about, because I know they were looking at you seriously.
Yeah, there were some organizations that would have worked great. In fact, I got an offer from World Relief to do an adolescent girls program in Liberia, but they wanted me to start in June, and we still had classes in June. So they just said, well, sorry, apply again later.
Right.
But since that time, I've got emails from them saying, hey, you're free yet. So there's still these possibilities. Even if an internship doesn't work out, you can still work something out later.
And I actually, I didn't apply to 20 places. I applied to some. I had an interview. Yeah, you were. I had an interview with the Baker and Kristen Service Committee, which went really well. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And they liked me, I liked them, and then we discovered that it was a summer internship. So, because we were still in classes, and so I was like, okay, I can't start until August. Like, oh, we need somebody for this summer, man. So keep an eye out.
But also be explicit in your application. You cannot start until the fall.
Yeah.
Because some of them are going,
Yeah.
oh yeah, internship, great. Okay, so June
Right.
5th, does that work for
Right.
you?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work for
Yeah.
me. Lindy would kill me if I missed that much class.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the same thing with the American Food Service Committee is they were like, we just realized we didn't have that on our idealist ad for this position that it started.
With Profugo being as local as it is, were you able to start there while you were taking the summer courses?
we probably could have.
Yeah.
I mean, but summer classes honestly are 4 days a week and they're fairly intensive. I mean,
So plan on not doing anything besides class.
yeah.
Like I moved during that time. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we started early in August, so we're going to be finished before most of our, cohort will be finished with their internships.
Which means we have time to focus on pump exams and papers. Yeah. If you can start early, it's great.
What are some of the things that you think you've learned through the internship and playing off of what you studied here?
Of course, he asked that question.
Of course.
How do you apply what you've learned? Honestly, for us, we had a lot of issues. Profugo really likes to work collaboratively, which is great, but that means that there's a lot of ideas flying around, and I'm a get it done kind of person. I like to be like, just tell me what to do or what needs to be done, and I'll get it done. We don't have to talk about it for 20 hours. So that's been a frustration for me. So for me, it was tailoring kind of my expectations of what I wanted to do and what I could do with what was needed of me and what was actually useful. So for them, sitting around the conference table and hearing ideas for an hour makes them work better. And so it's just that they're that kind of an organization. A lot of it was kind of interpersonal things that I learned, management styles, things like that. As far as applying, so leadership and empowerment is a class. Do you guys have that now? Okay, so you'll use a lot of that in your internship.
And it's funny because actually a lot of it, I know we talked about our first semester, not that it wasn't a good class because it was, and I don't know if you guys have, but our professor was great. We had Professor Zook. I don't know if you guys have. But at the same time, we're like, okay, a lot of this is common sense stuff.
Yeah, we got this.
Stuff we learned in Sunday school or in college classes or just, whatever. But then you get into your internship and you're like, oh yes, okay.
Like, wait, what was that thing that guy said in that one book? And
Right.
you don't look and you're like, that's it. That's what I need to do. And
Yeah. So it actually was, it might seem like it's not as like technical hardcore as economic development or program planning or some of the other things, but no, it's
it
useful.
will be.
So, and I think for me, just learning more about development as a whole in the development world helped me see kind of how Profugo fits into this giant puzzle that is development. And seeing different things and going, okay, this is this principle at work, or this is this, economic whatever at work in this situation. So it's definitely been, we're not using some of the things that we learned that I think we probably should be using, but we are using a lot of it.
But also because of having gone through this program, we're able to kind of look at some of the things they are doing and go, this is really great, but do you think maybe we should use this element of economic development to improve things, or maybe the practices, like we'll have ideas, so like we have appreciative inquiry, I can talk. Appreciative inquiry, which is something you'll study if you haven't already, and community development, yes, it's one of the theories of community development. See, I'm remembering now. But it's something that we brought up and we said, here's this article we read, and we showed it to our executive director. She's like, you know what, our field staff needs to read this. And so we were able, also feasibility study you'll do in microfinance is something that we've been able to share, and they're actually getting kind of excited about. Maybe we could do this in the community with that. So there's a lot of things that we've been able to kind of bring to the table, so we're not just passively, learning from them, we're also actively engaging.
And small organizations, like larger organizations, are applying for grants, and you will learn how to write a grant writer proposal. So
If you can do a program plan and a Gantt chart and a grant, you're perfect.
yeah,
All organizations will love
we'll
it.
get to that next semester. So I guess you guys don't have program planning this semester.
I just like,
So do you see yourselves staying with Profugo for another time, or you're only doing it for the internship?
I really kind of wanted to stick around, but because it's a volunteer position and because they're not in a position to pay me, which is fine because that's the organization they are, I've got to find a full-time job. So I'm actually, and it keeps like saying, I think you might be interested in this. And so yeah, I may stick around in an off-site capacity and post things on Facebook sometimes or help with the newsletter, but I'll definitely be in the process of looking for something else.
I'll be in the area for the school year, and so I'll be kind of still keeping them kind of on my radar and probably participating with some of the events, since that was kind of my main responsibility was networking. Also probably be helping with some of the events that I've helped set up that aren't happening until later in the year. But I don't see myself staying much longer. I'd really like to kind of move on to something, again, that pays would be nice.
And that is one of the issues that both of us have seen with Profugo is continuity. They have a lot of fresh ideas on a regular basis because each new person that comes in has fresh ideas, but they really only have 3 or 4 staff, at least in Ardmore, that are there and that are staying there. And so it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Your ideas are great, but at the same time, it's really helpful to have somebody in who can maybe bring up a new idea, but then last longer to see it through.
How do they fund the day-to-day operations in their office in Ardmore, including the rent, etc.?
Donations, and then sales from the products. Day-to-day operations also are mostly covered by Cyrus XP, which is the for-profit that Jenny and Ashwin have. So like we're housed in the same building as Cyrus XP, so we just have a conference room off to the side, and that's where our office
So
is.
electricity, that kind of stuff is, covered in that, so they'd be using the same amount of electricity for the room there.
So day-to-day operations are usually Cyrus XP's business. In the office, in the Center of Development, it's based a lot on donations and grants, just whatever we can find usually. Any questions? You guys are better at questions than we were. We never had questions last year.
So, non-profits always struggle with financing because they always depend on their donor base capacity. And I'm sure if they had some money to employ you guys, you would be willing to stay. And I think that kind of, because they don't have enough money to pay you guys, that's why we have the issue of continuity of the ideas. So you have a brilliant idea, she has a brilliant idea, but because she cannot properly execute the idea in a long run, she leaves. And so do you think that kind of contributes to that, like the financial resources?
Absolutely, and they have a lot of interns that are undergrads, and once they graduate, they're still interested in being a part of Profugo, but because they need to go now and find a job, they're not able to engage as much as they would like to sometimes. So I think Profugo is really small. They've only been around for 5 years now, and that's one thing they're trying to move towards is becoming sustainable and actually pay salaries to people and things like that. So it's just a lot of things are in the works when it comes to that. A lot of things are in the development stage.
At the same time, they do pride themselves on being an all-volunteer organization because their overhead is very low. If you look at a financial report or something, there's not much going to salaries. In fact, none in the U.S. I mean, it's paying Indian workers and paying stipends to the field fellows. But that is a selling point for some donors. It just depends on kind of it's a trade-off. So there are good elements of it, and then there are negative elements of it. They're choosing at this point to stay volunteer, but then eventually they may get need to pay a few more people just to get that.
A little bit different subject, if you wish, or if you're able, can you name off some of your fellow cohort?
And where they are?
Yeah, where they are, what they're doing. And could you bring the mic between you, please?
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, I probably have a lot more interaction with them right now, so I can speak to probably several
I'm
of them.
antisocial, really. I really kind of understand how
Except for me. So we have, let's see, we have Megan McKinley. She is doing women's programs in Kurdistan right now. And she is, she's able to do English language school, and she's also worked with Syrian refugees a little bit. So she's still kind of exploring all of that. Then Ashley Casedo is in India. She's working with orphan care and orphans' rights. Let's see, Josh is he's also in India, but he's in a different part of India. And he is working mostly with small business. In fact, he's kind of frustrated right now because it's not going like he thought it would, and he's doing not a lot. So that, I'm not sure.
Josh?
Josh Ellison.
Oh, yeah.
Rick Hammock is in DR Congo, and he's working with World Relief, and he's doing Savings for Life. He's also doing women's rights. He's also worked with a little bit of sustainable agriculture. He's kind of gotten his feet wet with that. So he's kind of all over the place doing whatever they tell him to, which he's very pleased about. But he'll be there for a year. He got a year-long support-based position that he was able to get through World Relief. Let's see, who else?
looking at Facebook.
Christina Meta is in South Sudan. She had been in South Sudan for several years prior to that, working in water engineering. She's an engineer. So she was able to just go back and rejoin her team and finish her internship there. That's actually, she asked me to share with you guys. Some things have kind of changed with her team. And so the team leaders are not coming back from furlough like they were going to, and some things have changed around with the structure of their team there. So she's not able to stay anymore like she thought she would, and she'll be leaving in the next week or so and coming back to the States. But she asked me to share with you guys that Eastern is really helpful with that. They've been really understanding, really accommodating, and just worked with her so she can finish her internship here, and it's not a problem for her classes. See, who else? That's 5. Aaron Littlefield is in DC working with World Vision. Alina's in New York working with the UN. I have no idea where Nana is, honestly.
I know where she is.
You know where Nana is? Okay. Where's Nana?
She's in Michigan. You left me.
Oh, that's right.
That's okay.
Let's see, Christina is in DC, isn't she?
Christina's in DC as well. Nishant Das is in DC. He's one of the MBAs. I know there aren't very many MBAs this year, so he's also working for World Vision, if I understand correctly. But Dinah's another one, I think.
You know where Dinah is?
Of course. Where are Dinah and Willie? Go ahead and tell us.
She's working in the Kitchen Foundation in New York.
Okay.
Oh,
I
that's
knew
right.
she was in New York, but I wasn't.
Okay.
Minyanga is in Canada. Minyanga Samuel, he is working for the Canadian government actually right now. He got a job pretty much with Parliament, I think.
Tamara, I believe, is in Michigan, although she's part-time in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
So
But eventually she'll be going back to Ethiopia with her now husband.
Hannah?
Hannah's working with Hope International. I know that. But she has another MBA. So Hope International is good for the MBAs.
Sarah is in DC as well, isn't she?
She's working for International Justice Mission.
Sorry, not on Facebook. Sorry.